Welcome to the roundtable discussion today. And we have with us Venkatraghavan, Rohan, and myself, Rathnakumar. Today, we're going to speak about AI in healthcare. To start with, let me give a brief introduction about everybody. Let me start with myself. I'm Rathnakumar. I'm a blogger, tech entrepreneur, product data guy. And then we have Venkat here. Venkat is a program manager at Parkland Center of Clinical Innovation located in Dallas, Texas. He develops clinical and community data models to serve the vulnerable population. He serves as a data strategist and a storyteller there. He has a PhD in biomedical science and a clinical pharmacist. And then we have Ahana here, who's a senior data scientist at GE Healthcare and is based out of Bay Area. She develops AI solutions for medical imaging applications to improve patients' diagnosis and monitoring. Then we have Rohan. Rohan is a senior data scientist at Headspace. He's a personalization expert and primarily works on machine learning models and has over 7 years of experience in data science. And he's a data guy. To start with, let me just close out on the introduction, and I'll start with a pretty straightforward question to Venkat. When you look at the current scenario, what is your emotion towards healthcare, and what do you think the landscape is moving towards?
Yeah. Hello, all. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the panel and share a few thoughts. If you're going to ask me a question on the current climate of AI in healthcare, I would say AI in healthcare is such a broad topic to discuss. I would start with to say that AI in healthcare is not a hype anymore, right? And the reality is AI has been leveraged and applied very productively in three major healthcare domains, if you can go to categorize them. And one is AI in patient use or experience. Two would be AI in clinical experience or clinical care team. And three would be AI in healthcare administration. On one hand, AI is used to accomplish the goals of the tripling, which again, we can broadly made into tripling, right? Three is improving individual experiences of care, or improving health of populations, or reducing the per capita cost in general to reduce cost and increase efficiency. If I'm going to have my population health expertise, I would say identifying and addressing social determinants of health, that is SDOH, which includes both patients and healthcare providers, will be the new aim, expanding the triple aim to a quadruple aim, focusing heavily on work-life balance. This is the good side, right? On the other hand, I would say there are like a few challenges or hefty challenges in application of AI within the health industry itself. Not all models are working as they are intended to accomplish this quadruple aim. To help regulate and monitor the recent FDA guidelines, as many of you know, would be like for using AI data models is aimed to overcome these challenges and enhance quality and improve patient care outcomes. However, the FDA guidelines remain incomplete in certain major areas. Just to include a few would be about like how do we reduce unintended bias? How do we like systems involving predictive risk models? And what is the level of oversight required for monitoring so that we could overcome these challenges? To add a few more, I would say there is still lacuna in overcoming this data overload, and because of which there's associated user fatigue and burden in the healthcare team itself using AI. And that causes less stakeholder buy-in, a level of personalization, and the humongous AI developmental costs associated in deploying AI-based models in health. Just to reiterate back, right? AI has passed this hype stage. There is a real productive use of AI to improve outcomes, overall health and wellness of people.
I think he has just summed it up really well. I think it's now Rohan's turn to probably just take it over and then add his flavor to it.
Yeah, thank you,
Rohan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can't hear Rohan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. We are able to hear.
Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rohan. So basically, as Venkat said, like there are like humongous opportunity in like field of AI we have right now to change the patient experience, right? And one of the things I would like to emphasize on, like, how we can help like AI to let's say, change like, patient outcome, like how we can improve patient outcome using AI. Now we know some part of our life like that. Most of our e-commerce is filled with AI with our recommendation system. So the field I work on like is personalization and recommendation. You see, today you open Amazon and Amazon provide you like all your like, what things you should be buying. And if you open Netflix provide you all the like personalized content, what should be your next series or what should be your, next movie you should be watching. And not only in that, this particular industry, you will see that there are various industries where personalization is making huge changes, whether it's like, LinkedIn providing a personalized job, or in any other sector, we are seeing that personalization playing a huge role. One of the places where we want this personalization to be in healthcare. So suppose like tomorrow, if you come to a platform and that platform understand your need and provide you like personalized recommendation about your health. So one of the company in which I work on, Headspace, we provide like personalized meditation for our user. We have huge content about for mindfulness and meditation. And we use some of these AI tools to cater like personalized recommendation for our user. Now, how it can help to our user? We know lots about our user by some of the like onboarding surveys that they provide like some of the information to us. We also have a company called Ginger where we have like personalized coaching to our users and patients. And using that information, we can create like a personalized stress management program for our users. So as you can see that AI can play a huge role here where we don't have to rely on like, humans to collect large amount of data and make decisions. Rather than this kind of task can be delegated to these systems where these systems can help our users to, to have like better outcome. One more important area I would like to touch that we want to like healthcare is a journey, right? It's not a destination. You have to follow like, so suppose if we talk about like healthy lifestyle, you have to follow certain, programs or certain, you have to have certain discipline or you have to build certain habits that can bring those outcomes to your health. Whether it's a physical health or mental health, you need some kind of, habit to follow those routines, and those routines can help you to get like, favorable outcome. So one of the things AI can help us is that forming good habit to our user or to our patient, right? We try to optimize our model not for like, our traditional model, like suppose in social media, you try to optimize your model for engagement, right? You want your people to stick to the system. You want people to consume the data. But here we are optimizing for something big. We want to optimize something for the habit, like we want to form a habit, right? What constitutes a good habit? A good habit is something like we provide like right right content at the right time for the right duration. And all these factors has to be optimized for a better outcome for our patient or user. So as we can see that the field of personalization cannot be just restricted for social media or e-commerce or any other field where we are more related, like we are more concerned about the conversion or engagement. Here, we want to use like AI systems to build a personalized health program for our users so they can get like most benefit out of it. And we have like, currently we are in the data age, we have like a huge amount of data of user, and with proper regulation and with proper constraints, like we can capture that data, find out like, appropriate patterns, and those patterns can help our user to not only, just to stay healthy or fit, but try to like build a healthy lifestyle, or try to build a healthy habit that can help them in the long run. So yeah, that's my take on how AI can help, especially personalization can help towards the patient outcome. Ratan, I think you're on.
I said, Rohan is such a storyteller himself. I think you're going to give a tough competition to Venkat. I think we have had different views about, views on perspective from two different people. One who has a very storytelling way of looking at it itself, Venkat, and then now Rohan had a very sort of personalization wing to it. Now let's hear from somebody who's hardcore into data. Hannah, it's your turn now.
Sure. And let me preface by saying that the views expressed here are of my own, not of my company, right? So standard disclaimer. Yeah, and I think one common thread that kind of underlies both what Venkat and Rohan said was improving patient outcomes, right? That's really the overarching goal of AI in healthcare as it currently stands. And that's a very loaded phrase. What does it mean to improve patient outcomes? It definitely means better diagnosis, and faster diagnosis, so that we can get to a more effective treatment plans earlier in the process. And add to that, we need to do this all in a more streamlined, more optimized fashion so that it saves time and money for all the parties involved. The healthcare administration part that Venkat briefly touched on. And so, if we think of it in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, which is the recent most social disruptor we went through, so many people did not get the treatment that they needed because we did not do probably a good job in optimizing and allocating the resources that we had. So there were not enough trained medical professionals, or not a proper utilization of medical equipments, resources, etc. So, and what's the bottleneck here, right? As Rohan mentioned, it's not data, right? There's actually an information overload in today's day and age. There's data from electronic health records, from imaging devices, from wearable sensors, health apps, diagnostic tests, survey data. In fact, there was a survey done by RBC Capital Markets a couple of years ago that stated that about 30% of the world's total data volume today is generated by the healthcare industry alone. So that's huge. It's how we make sense of that data and turn that information into actionable insights is where the bottleneck currently lies, right? And that's where AI has a major role to play. So it's tying back to improving patient outcomes. It's what AI in healthcare really tries to do is to make the jobs of our medical professionals easier, more streamlined, so that they can help more patients in the same amount of time and in a more effective manner.
I think she nailed it. So probably I'll just take it over from here and just give it a slight kickoff, because looking at different facets of what healthcare is all about, the fundamental problem that we could sort of underlyingly see across the board is the availability of data. I think we are at a certain phase where the technology has scaled up really fast that people don't have a problem with data availability. It's the other problem that we have, which is the data abundance. We have way too much of data that we don't know how to consume. What are the different avenues to consume? And even when we consume, are we consuming the data the right way they're supposed to be consumed? I think that's exactly where the entire data lifecycle comes into play. When you look at a data lifecycle altogether, it starts with data collection, data collation, data organizing, analysis, analytics. Then you get into model development, deployment, and then ingestion. I think technology as such has started scaling from where the challenge was a decade ago, where data collection was a problem. and then slowly it grew, and it started moving faster than what we all assumed it would, but it actually moved much faster than what anybody would have had in their wildest dreams. If you look at the news last week, people started signing petitions saying maybe we should stop using development of AI beyond a certain point. I think generative AI is going to sort of dominate a lot more industries than we thought thought they would, and at a much faster rate. So going back to exactly what's happening in the AI healthcare space is also that here, like Hannah was pointing it out, there's data abundance because there's multiple sources through which data comes to you. Being able to sort of filter it out, and then being able to understand those data and make meaningful insights out of it, like what Rohan was pointing out, saying, okay, for me to be able to personalize and be able to look out for data that makes sense to me is the most challenging part of everything. And that's exactly where optimization comes into play. I think healthcare as an industry has to start investing more towards optimization, so they could make sense of the data, not just in an effective manner, but also in a cost efficient manner. That's another challenge, because when you look at any economy for that matter, it's not a military, right? So you don't get too much funds on healthcare. So that's another challenge that a lot of healthcare domain has to sort of survive and go through, where we are looking at, okay, what is my not just what is my most efficient way of consuming it, but also how to be able to optimize it and make it viable. That's exactly where AI implementation gets to be a biggest headache for the whole healthcare ecosystem. I think I'll let Venkat and Hannah take over the implementation part of the AI healthcare here.
Yeah, thank you, Ratan and Rohan and also Hannah, touching on how healthcare data itself is a mess, right? Because it's not that easy, as already Ratan had told, come from multiple data sources. The question always rallies around certain things before we do for the implementation is how well, what's the recency of your data? How reliable is your data, and how accurate is your data? This is a one-way street that leads to inherent bias. And tell you, algorithms cannot produce accurate outputs, and this causes further widening of gaps in equitable care. And if you're going to talk on personalized medicine or on what is it called, personalized medicine or precision medicine, and also to reduce health equity, you need to understand how this data leads into bias. And coming from taking these AI data models, putting it not only in the healthcare system, but also in the community side, we face a lot of legal and ethical issues, especially in healthcare data information exchange or the data sharing itself. So that is where, again, what Rohan had already touched on, what is the level of data, what is the timing of the data that needs to go in there, right? So like who gets to start to see this? So especially, for example, I would just give one example is the banking industry, how much well-regulated it is, right? You go there, you have all your personal information, and that information is getting shared. Likewise, when we go into a hospital system, ask for your own data. You will know how much of HIPAA regulations that is being controlled, especially to share this healthcare data information. So just to put it in a nutshell, if you don't start working on this healthcare messy data across what the panel has been told, we cannot start to understand bias, or we have to start thinking about how we kind of address these biases too before we go in for the implementation. What do you think, Ahana?
Yeah, I'm glad you touched upon bias, because that's such an important part of the application of AI in healthcare, right? And we have seen so many past studies that point to how AI can not only perpetuate the existing inequities that are there in society, but even magnify the problems when it comes to socioeconomic status or ethnicity, gender, disability, and so many other factors. Let me just give a couple of examples to kind of emphasize how dire the consequences can be of not keeping that in mind when going through the entire AI pipeline. So for example, there was this study that came out in PNAS in 2020, which found out that when deep learning was used to diagnose thoracic diseases from X-ray images, gender imbalances in the data sets which they used could actually lead to consistent decrease in performance for genders that were underrepresented. There was a similar study on JAMA Dermatology Network, which identified disparities in how skin cancer was diagnosed across people of different skin colors, because the model that was used to diagnose such irregularities were trained primarily with people with light-skinned people. So imagine the consequences of putting out such models out in the real world, where real lives are at stake.
I think they had definitely shown their sort of skill set of the AI, healthcare. Like, I think I'll just open up a little bit with Rohan. Let's just let her loose a little bit and get more into AI and data in general about healthcare. We could just talk about it before we could jump on to the questions that are getting popped up already.
Yeah. So thank you, Ratan. Like as you said, like one of the main challenge in AI or any kind of system is execution and implementation. As we can say, there was a report from Gartner 2 years ago that 90% of the AI or ML project failed in most of the industry. And the reason is there is a huge gap. So we can address this problem in various fronts. First front, we have to see that there is not a clear clarity of business objective. What is the business objective, and what we are trying to build system? Do we have enough data for it? There are huge regulation applied on healthcare data set, and it's not easy to acquire this data set. That is the one particular thing. Second thing is that it requires various kind of skill set that not particularly abundant in the industry. You need some people who know AI in various front, whether it's a data extraction process, whether it's a model building process, or there is an end-to-end system implementation process. And one of the things which I want you to put more give your thoughts on project management, because you're an expert of project management, that how it is difficult to manage a AI in healthcare project rather than any conventional project. So those are the things I think are very important, and this is where the rubber meets the road, that planning about AI system and executing or implementing this system have their own challenges. So yeah, up to you, Ratan. Could you please
Absolutely
on, project management?
I think it's a very interesting way of looking at the data altogether. I think before I start about it, I think I should basically start from where Venkat was leaving away. Unlike any other data, when you touch a healthcare data, there's a lot of regulations to be worked around with. You should always think about HEPA before you touch your keyboard. That's how crazy it could get when it comes to healthcare data. And conveniently, it also has its effect across the body. You're not only talking about healthcare data, you're also talking about insurance data. You're talking about accident-related data. You're talking about medical data. So there's a lot of connecting dots that sort of goes via healthcare. It sort of affects every other domain as well. That's also the reason why when it comes to, let's say, implementation or data, product management around healthcare is concerned, then you have a lot of challenges in terms of data management. Product management, project management becomes such a difficult task to be able to take over, because it is not easy to sort of maneuver across all these sort of challenges or bottlenecks that happens very specific to healthcare data, which is unlike any other domain. Let's say if I want to run an e-commerce site today, you could just do it by in your garage. That's as simple as that. There's enough infrastructure available for you. There's enough ways for you to be able to work it at scale. That's not the same case when it comes to healthcare data. You got to really invest a lot in your data management system. And then you have to plan your product management based on that, which means you no more can go through your agile methodology. You might have to go to a waterfall methodology where you really develop everything at one dot and then start implementing. And when you start implementing, then again, you have a lot of tooling and infrastructure challenge that's going to come into play as well, because it is not an easy joke for you to be able to take such a huge sensitive data and implement into an infrastructure and think everything is going to work like an appliance. It's not going to work at all. So that's the biggest challenge that people like us, people like me who work on day-to-day on product management really face a lot when it comes to the healthcare data issues, but at a top level. And then there are people like you who work on models and deployment. I'm not going to get into that part of the equation at all. I'll leave that to you. You can take over that part of it.
Yeah, that is, as you said, like project management, extremely important piece of this, where you not only manage your project, but also you have to keep talking with the stakeholder, meeting their expectation, and making sure that project is on the right path. Now, on the engineering side, there are huge challenges itself. Many of the time we have seen that, if you take any traditional software engineering project, the outcomes are very deterministic, right? If I want to create some kind of website, I know how the end product will look like. But in the AI system, the outcome are very probabilistic, right? You never know that the data you have has enough information that can predict certain things. Now you have to be extremely careful that these models do not make any kind of error that can impact our end user, like our patients or our user. We have to be extremely careful that we vet them very properly. We use correct evaluation metrics, and we also make sure that whatever we see offline, when we train our model, that the score generated by the model actually reflect what will happen to the world. And then we have to do lots of online testing. We have to test the system on our user. One of the conservative approach we take in that front is using A/B testing, or randomized control trial in medical term, right? We want to make sure that we check these models on a small set of population and see that whether they are actually making that impact. And we have to build lots of monitoring tool, infrastructure tool to see that there are not any kind of data drift, our data is not drifting from the, because the data is ever changing. We have to make sure that the data distribution doesn't drift. We have to make sure that our model doesn't drift, that it is working as intended. And we have to also, very importantly, make sure that our concept doesn't drift. So our concept drift is also very important, that our machine learning, our objective is same, like our model. So one of the example I want to give you, that suppose we want to we want to have our patient, we want to build some kind of habit to a patient, and our model is just giving them some content which is good for click-through rate. Every day our user come and they are spending time. Now, as I take one example from one industry in which I work on, healthcare industry or mental health industry, right? We don't want our user to spend more time on their phone, right? That is the whole purpose, that defeats the whole purpose of mental health. You don't want your user, and if your model is only optimizing for click-through rate, like TikTok, your user is keep staying on the phone all the time, they're not getting the headspace or the mental need what they want. We have to make sure that our model is working as intended, and whenever there is a any kind of anomaly in the system, we always interject and always take over from that system. So we have to make sure that these silent fails are always keep under the radar. So yeah, over to you, Ratan.
I think if we start speaking about data, we could just keep speaking along the line forever. But thinking about it, I think one thing a lot of people have to understand is, when it comes to data science, it is nothing but an educated guess. That's it. That's also the reason why there's a high probability of a certain model going wrong, and there's a high probability of something not happening, something that you intend to happen doesn't happen. So there's always a lot of trial and error. And when it comes to sensitive data, like let's say healthcare is concerned, the room to make such errors are very minuscule, and the budgets are also pretty minimal. I think that those are all the challenges that the industry has to be able to evade around. And we can all hope that the day, the way at which technology is getting scaled up, these are the type of problems that can get solved much faster than what we think they would. That's exactly what I hope at this point in time before I sign off on this conversation. And we could jump onto the question. We have a few question answers, the questions that is already there. I could just read out, and then we can try taking them one after the other. So the first question: could we see a 2D plot of the confidence level?
Yeah, that's.
I think
it's for the previous session. Yeah.
Okay, so, sorry then. Okay, no image. Okay, here, Ahana, you got the first question. How do you go about measuring the outcomes between AI outcome compared to a human doctor physician's diagnosis, and how did your AI healthcare take that into consideration?
Right, that's a very important question, actually. And FDA has pretty strict guidelines on that. So I would say when multiple doctors or physicians look at an image or clinical notes or do a diagnosis, basically, there's also some kind of variability between the doctors themselves, right? And I would say the performance of our AI system in healthcare has to fall within that variability. So it can't be something that goes beyond that. So it's important to take the consensus of a reasonably large pool of physicians and kind of compare our results with them. And one more thing that's really important is testing rigorously on the kind of patient population that is intended for, which I can tie back to the issue of bias that I was talking about earlier, that we need to kind of make sure that we mitigate bias as much as possible across the board, across the different groups of people that can potentially use that system.
Perfect. That's well said. Okay, the next question is for me. Hi, Rathnakumar, what governance do you adhere to with respect to the source of the original data and the conception of the data for the healthcare sector in order to make it accurate for the target that you have defined to achieve with the healthcare outcome at a granular, tangible, impactful position without losing the patient care outcome to be achieved? Otherwise, what is the backup plan if it does not deliver the type of predefined outcome that wanted to achieve for the right type of healthcare patient care? Slightly, it's a pretty lengthy question, but the answer is pretty simple and straightforward. Like I was saying, there is when it comes to healthcare data or any data for that matter, the fun part of the data is that, which is you cannot have a governance on where the data is coming from. You can have a governance on how the data is consumed, how the data is processed, how it is implemented or infused. The governance comes after the data gets generated. You cannot govern where the data is coming from. You cannot say a healthcare data can only come through a patient's reports. No, it can come from one of the other areas. It could be something as simple as a second degree, third degree contact that has happened, and that's exactly where the data is getting sourced from. So we cannot have a governance over where the data is coming from. But in terms of how the data is prepared, defined, and consumed, like I said, healthcare, any data science, any data is an educated guess, and we cannot really silo it, saying there is a predefined notion on how you can define an outcome of it. We try it. I think it is at a certain point your accuracy metrics really gets evolved, and that's exactly where the tangible results happen. So that's my answer to it. The next one is for you, Venkat. What is the industry governance model for data control and management of data sources used for AI healthcare and patient care outcomes that are to be compared with classical human intervention of the healthcare management of the patient outcomes in comparison, and who is the industry who in the industry adheres to that mantra of data management and control of the data and not just HIPAA?
Okay, if I can summarize this, it's like I kind of understand this question as like how do we kind of adhere to the data, and how do we kind of handle the data itself, right? So I would say that no wonder FDA has put those strict guidelines for us for monitoring there. Currently, whatever the AI data model that anybody is implementing or deploying there, it's going to be considered as a medical device. And how those medical devices are going to be handled, right? The same way AI data model. So that's, to answer to your adherence question, that's the way we are going to adhere to it. Okay, they're going to make this as a medical device. And two, the second part of the question, I think so, you had asked about the comparison between a human intervention, right? I would say that use this data as a CDS tool, CDS as in clinical decision support, to facilitate decision making. There are three major steps in the decision making. One is identification of the problem, or identifying the solution there. Recommendation, what does the CDS recommend to you? The AI also recommends, right? AI recommends. And finally, the action that a stakeholder takes in. So I would say more and more, once we, as Rohan and already Ratan had told about QAing the processes and doing much more root cause analysis, what Ahana had told to understand the bias and the challenges, I think so it will be much more better for the industry to put in those monitoring regulations so that people can adhere to it, not just the HIPAA, whatever you have asked for. Hope that answers the question.
It does, Venkat. I think, here's the last question. And it's for both of us. Hi, Venkatraghavan and Rathnakumar. What do you anticipate? What do you anticipate the landscape of AI healthcare to look like in 2030 in terms of the next journey of healthcare outcomes applied by AI, data ingested into the AI space? So he's talking about more on the second level of AI ingested data, which is fed onto AI models itself, and how it could look in 2030. So probably you can if you want, you can start answering, or I can just kick it off.
Yeah, I would say, right, like going from level A to level B, or A to B, is, again, as Rohan already told, it's a journey, right? It is going to be the ideal. I'm going to quote this, okay? Well-timed information will lead to better decisions. Why do I say this? Is because currently, just to have one single risk score and to have very limited information to take decisions, from there to go to a profile-based risk scores, right? To give you much more information. So we're going to add data upon data, helping the single risk score with data interpretation would be the journey from here to go there. So that will help to give better guided decisions for the physicians or the healthcare team, and also for the patients for their experience itself. So that is one. And the data is going to come from the patient. It's not going to come from anybody else. It's going to be our data to be used within us, right? And how do we better use that? And how do we interpret the data would be the journey. What do you think, Ratan?
Absolutely, I think you put that you nailed it really well, because the biggest thing change that I think that's going to happen, especially on the AI healthcare sector, is people are going to get enabled with too much data. People will be able to start handling data. I think the sort of stigma that was behind the data has started disintegrating. It's one of the most abused word at this point in time. Data and AI is already the most abused word. I think that is going to get refined as we move more and more towards generative AI. And once you get into the generative AI, every layman is going to understand what is drift, what is bias. It's not it's no more about AI explainability is going to become a common commodity. I think that is exactly where the whole ecosystem is going to walk towards in the near future. And 2030, it could be way far ahead. I think it could be much more simple and easy for people to consume and analyze the data by themselves. I think it's a very good, interesting question that even we could take perspective from both Rohan and Hannah as we sign off. What do you feel about the personalization part of it in 2030, Rohan?
So yeah, thank you so much, Ratan. I feel like as we are going into the new generation of IoT devices, now you can see that everybody is wearing fitness watches, and we have phone with us all the time. The new federated learning, if people are not aware about federated learning, that we are not just rely on supercomputers that are sitting in Amazon servers, but we are relying on the small processors that are coming with our phones and in our wearable devices. And these devices can get more precise information about a user health. As we have already seen that healthcare is as a journey, not destination, and we can get more refined data from our user. So some user who opt in for this kind of information, they can get personalized recommendation based on what happening to their body. If you are stressed too much, that your phone can tell you, yeah, your blood pressure is increasing, and you should calm down, you should get this kind of thing, or you should do more exercise today. Getting this kind of personalized program, as we know that every single human being on earth is different, and we need different kind of healthcare need. Everybody has a different a phase of their journey in life, right? Somebody is pretty young, somebody's they are pretty senior right now. And what early intervention we can do based on this personalized program, that can definitely help our future generation to get all those important personalized care plans, or right on their phone, or right on their on doorstep pretty early, before any before any delay. And Ahana here, she's an expert in medical imaging, and she can explain more about how we can utilize those information. So to you, Ahana.
Yeah, sure. So going back to the original question of what the landscape is going to be looking like in 10 years. So yeah, I mean, the presence of AI in the healthcare space is only going to increase, right? And it kind of gets reflected in the way FDA actually treats AI ML enabled software for diagnosis as medical devices now, and puts down guidelines in that way. And it's how we make these AI enabled diagnosis safer, more reliable, and more inclusive is, I think, where the journey is going to be.
Perfect. I think we had a very sort of diverse sort of audience that we connect different dots. We try at least connecting different dots at the same time. It sort of gives a different vibe to the whole thing. And we have slightly passed the time, but it's been such a great pleasure talking to every one of you. And thanks everyone for being a great audience. And thanks everyone for such a great, thanks for the forum for such a great opportunity as well. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this roundtable, and and with that, we sign off today.